Good afternoon, guys and girls. You are listening to the Be More podcast. I am your host, Jack Williams, and today I am solo, and we're going to be going through some nutritional topics that I feel will add a ton of value to all of you that are listening. So, nutrition is largely misunderstood, and I've had countless numbers of consultations over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years that I feel like this podcast has been a long time coming. So what is the best way to lose weight? So I'm going to do a bit of a series on nutrition because this podcast is about being more, and nutrition is a huge thing that we all do every single day that can create a platform for us to be more. So it helps us see results, helps us feel better energy levels, helps us perform better, helps us to look better, feel better, be more confident because the way we look, the way we feel. So nutrition is this really important thing. So I'm going to make a bit of a series on nutrition, as well as still be doing some of the other self-development, other aspects of the Be More kind of message by interviewing guests along the way. So I've got a few good guests lined up that I'm really excited to be interviewing, as well as doing the nutritional stuff. So exciting times for the Be More podcast. And yeah, so today I want to touch on the subject of rates of weight loss and whether it's good to do things slow and in a sustainable way, or whether it's better to do things in a fast way. Do they have pros and cons to each approach? And if done the right way, is one better than the other? And that's going to be really annoying if my emails keep going off. So let me just turn that down or off. So yeah, that's what this podcast today is going to be about. I've got some notes with me because I want to make sure that I don't go off on too many tangents, and I want to make sure that I say everything that I want to say in this podcast. So what you'll typically find is the problem most people have with their own diet isn't normally down to the fact that they're going in too aggressive or they're going in too slow. It normally comes down to the lack of education around the process that they're following. Therefore, they have a lack of confidence in it. Therefore, when things kind of fall off plan or when they don't see results one week, they won't continue to trust the process, and it inevitably is just another fact that they follow or something that they can't actually then go and sustain. So you'll have seen so many people that have gone on these really difficult diets to follow. They'll see great results, but inevitably it's an unsustainable way of getting into shape, and they don't have the education to reverse out of that, or the ability to then be like, right, this got me so far, now I need to put something in place to help me then bridge to the next part of my diet, so that I can then keep these results that I've got from the diet. Because at the end of the day, every single diet, if it's a fat loss diet, as long as it's a calorie deficit, it's going to deliver you results, right? So it's then your ability to keep them results is then going to determine the success of that diet. And that normally comes down to a number of things, including obviously your motivation, your education around nutrition, your behaviour change, and the habits that you've got in place from the following that diet in the first place. So what we're going to go over today is whether it's best to lose weight fast or to lose weight slow. And a lot of people are probably going to enjoy this episode because I'm actually going to encourage fast weight loss as well as slow weight loss. So it's largely subjective, but what you're probably going to expect me to say is do it slow, which is what a lot of people will say. A lot of gurus will say do it slow. That way it's more sustainable. But what I have found in encouraging this approach, so I do encourage people to do it slow, but again, it's always subjective. So for some people, doing things slow isn't going to get them to buy in, isn't going to motivate them, it isn't going to work for them as an individual. Therefore, they don't stick to it for long enough because they're like, I'm not getting results fast enough. So I've worked with several clients who I'm like, right, let's move you into this phase, let's do things this way. And they're like, Jack, do you know what, this isn't working for me. I'm not seeing drops fast enough on the scales, or I'm not seeing this, or I'm not seeing that. And at the end of the day, if I can't get them to buy in, no matter how good that approach is, which is going to work for them, they're not in a place where they are going to trust the process enough to stick to it, to see the results and the fruits of it long term. Therefore, I haven't got their buy-in, I haven't got their adherence, which is the thing that everyone needs to strive for, right? Dietary adherence is the thing that changes the game in every single diet you've ever seen in the world. So you might see somebody who's following a diet that to you looks ridiculous, that it just looks unsustainable. For example, if you look at the guy on social media who got massive reach about a few years ago, when he followed a diet that was consisting of white fish and rice cakes. Now that guy stick to that diet and got shredded. For most people, that's like, there's no way that I could follow that. That's seen as a very aggressive form of dieting, right? And he went from looking like a normal geezer, dad bod, into somebody who was completely peeled. And I think he went and won a bodybuilding show. And everyone then thought, fucking hell, that's what I've got to do to get in shape. It absolutely isn't. He was just prepped by a guy who had no fucking clue what he was doing. But what they did was they got the poor sod into a calorie deficit. They kept protein high because he was eating fish like it was going out of fashion. Therefore, his rates of muscle loss he didn't really lose much muscle because his protein was high, he was lifting. And he got in great nick. So what you need to understand from that is there's so many different ways to skin a cat. And every single guy who got on that stage in that day, this isn't about bodybuilding, like, it's not at all. This is just about fat loss in general. But every person who got on stage that day would have dieted in a different way. And that's what I want you to understand, is that there's so many different ways to skin a cat. Like, I'll have a chat of probably about 15 people this week potentially about diets. And every single one of them I'll have a different conversation with and a different way of trying to teach them around the process based on where they're at right now. So some people I'll take on in a minute. I've taken on a few clients recently who have been tracking calories. They've been doing it for a long, long time. They've been using MyFitnessPal, and they got to a point where they're not really seeing great results. And it's actually with these two is that they've been really aggressive with their weight loss. That it's got to a point now where their behaviours, that they're just having these problems where they'll go and overeat at weekends, or that they can't sustain the method they're following, or that there's something underlying that's causing them to stall and not see results. And it isn't because their calories are too low, but that people have this misconception that you didn't down-regulate your metabolism by being too low on calories, and all of a sudden you can't drop body fat. And this is only when you go like super, super low on calories. And this is where like things like water retention can come into play and make it look like you're not dropping body fat. But largely the problem is now down to a lack of adherence, and it's down to the fact of, they're sticking to their diet Monday to Thursday, but then at the weekend they're shoveling in loads of calories because their diet is so miserable during the week that it allows for zero variation, it allows for zero enjoyment, and it basically makes you feel like shit. So when you get to the weekend and you think, I'm not at work, I'm not going to be on my diet either, I'm going to go all in, and this is the problem most people have with their diet. So that's where having an aggressive approach to weight loss isn't always advantageous. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through, is fast or slow methods of weight loss right or wrong? What's better, fast versus slow? Diet breaks and refeeds, when to use them, do they work? Do you need to apply them? Blah-de-blah-de-blah. Is there a better rate of weight loss? And then some assumptions that are made with fast rates of weight loss, and then the actual benefits and the actual reality of this of fast weight loss. And then we're also going to go into why you should go slow, and then basically try and let you then make a decision what's the best way to go for you, because that's inevitably what I'm trying to do with this podcast and what I'm trying to do with all of my content where I'm trying to educate. I'm trying to get you to a position where you're like, brilliant, I've been educated on this and this, what then will work for me to then go and apply? Because at the end of the day, I could shout at my computer, my microphone for an hour every single day, but if you can't then go and apply any of the information that I'm teaching, it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. So what's important is I can give you content that brings value, that teaches you, then you can go and apply, which is what I'm really trying to deliver. So I've consumed content for a long, long time, but it wasn't until I found people that delivered it in a way that was made, I understood it, therefore I could then go and apply things into my everyday life that would then deliver me results. And I was the kind of person who wanted them results pretty instantly, because then that would get my buy-in, that would make me motivated, then I'd go and follow it. So, and I've got to a position now where I've followed so many different diets, and I've done every approach. I'm in a position now where I can give you my experience as well as what I've learned in doing nutrition courses and becoming a dietitian, and all the experience that I've got of working with people as well, to then be able to deliver a podcast and deliver a video that can give you an insight into what I've experienced from client results, my own results, knowledge from the best in the industry in regards to nutrition. So therefore I can then bring enough value then to then take action, which is what I want. Cool. So what some of the assumptions with fast rates of weight loss: lower levels of adherence, so lower levels of ability to stick to the diet, which is an assumption, isn't always true. I've actually had some clients, right, who if they don't feel hungry, like I've increased the amount of food in their diet whilst they're on a fat loss diet, but they're still losing weight, but they don't feel hungry enough, therefore they think it's not working. And I'm like, well, your measurements are coming in, your weight loss is coming down, your weight loss is dropping, body weight's dropping, sorry, you're seeing weight loss, your clothes are all fitting better, some of your clothes don't even fit anymore, so you have to go to the supermarket, or you're having to go to the shops, yet you're still adamant that it's not working because you're not hungry. And this is where some people are at. They're like, no, I don't believe it's working, I don't feel hungry. And I'm like, for some people, that's win-win. For them, they're like, banging, I don't feel hungry, this diet's easy, I can stick to this forever. And I've got other clients who are like, Jack, I don't think this is working, I don't feel hungry. I'm like, look at your measurements, look at your photos. This is why we do all these things that I make the people do. Like I make them take photos, make them do measurements, I make them measure and manage as many things as possible, because then what you measure you can manage, right? But then they're still adamant that no, I'm not hungry, Jack, it's not hard enough. And I'm just like, this is why it's so subjective with what approach is best for certain people. So yeah, sometimes you get lower levels of adherence because also it can be so aggressive that the calories are so low that people are too hungry and then they go and eat shit. So there's both ends of the spectrum, right? So again, it's so subjective to people. And what's important is if you are going to go with an aggressive approach to dieting, so you're going to drop their calories to a point where they're in a deficit that's greater than 10%, then you're going to have to implement ways of eating with more volume, more vegetables, more fibre in their diet, so more ways of making that client feel full. Otherwise, you're simply going to have a problem where their calories are so low that they're starving all the time. No matter what you try and then what they do, they're just always feeling hungry. Whereas if you then say, hang on a minute, let's increase meal frequency or let's decrease meal frequency based on what's practical for that client. Let's add in diet hacks that you would have seen, like diet ice cream, for example, that will then let them eat foods that you typically wouldn't see in their diets, then give them that psychological relief. Or you'll add in foods like cauliflower rice, for example, that will add loads of volume into their meal without adding loads of calories. But there's so many things that you can go and do to then put them on a lower calorie diet, but then still have them feel full and not feel the feelings of feeling really hungry, which can lead to bad adherence and that can lead to them binging and having things that aren't on their diet, which is going to inevitably mean they're not getting results because their calories are going to bring them out of a deficit. So another assumption from fast rates of weight loss is muscle loss, which in several studies have been proven not to be true, providing protein in the diet is adequate. So, and there's been some studies that have even brought it down to as low as like 1.5 grams per kilo of body weight, which is pretty low, and they've found that muscle wasn't lost. And as long as your protein is like adequate, they're not crazy high, but adequate, I would try and aim for like 2 grams per kilo of body weight or 1 gram per pound as like a minimum if you can. However, having said that, if you're quite heavy and overweight, it doesn't even need to be as high as that. It just needs to be an adequate amount, and again, it's subjective to you. But just having generally more protein in your diet than previously is then going to help you then protect muscle tissue, which is going to be vital in your fat loss efforts, because obviously you want to maintain the thing that makes you look good. And yeah, that's an assumption, but if you are training with lifting weights and doing resistance training and eating adequate amounts of protein, then your body has a reason to stimulate the muscle fibers to then make them stay. So the chances of you losing muscle, even when you're being really aggressive, isn't going to happen unless you are really, 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 really lean. So this kind of thing will be relevant to people who are like sub 10% body fat, and not many people are. And people listening to this probably aren't going to be. And if you are, then yes, a really aggressive diet is going to potentially make you lose a little bit more muscle than you would if you were doing things slower. So I would say if you're really lean, you're probably going to benefit from doing things slower. Having said that, there's going to be benefits to doing things faster, because that means you can get to the results faster. That means you can then bring calories back up to maintenance faster, which means you spend less time dieting, which is then a great thing because you're not going to have all the other effects of dieting come into play. Another assumption of fast rates of weight loss is slowed metabolism. Again, studies have shown that this isn't the case, and a perfect example of this is the guy who, a few years ago in America, he fasted. This guy was 210 kilos. He did a fast for 370 days, or 380 days. He basically went over a year not eating anything. and it was obviously supported by doctors and stuff. They made sure that he was healthy alongside doing it, and there appeared to be no negative effect to this guy's metabolism from doing so. And that's a very fucking extreme method of weight loss, not one that I recommend to anyone. But this guy went from 210 kilos to 82 kilos in 380 days, and since then he's only put back on 7 kilos. So he's now 89 kilos, and that's 5 years later. So it just shows that there's a million ways to skin a cat. That one seemed to work for him. But it's not one that I'd recommend to anyone, nor would I recommend any kind of fasting protocol. I would recommend intermittent fasting for some people, which works pretty well, which I follow myself some days of the week, more from a practicality standpoint more than anything else. But yeah, like, it just shows that, I've got my calories to a level, my metabolism's dropped down, that's why I'm not losing weight. No, it's because you're eating shit all the time and you can't stick to your low calorie diet, which is what's making you not lose weight. Because at the end of the day, if you're on 1,000 calories a day and you come to me and say you're not losing weight, I'm like, you're also not sticking to your diet, because 1,000 calories a day will get you very lean. And this is the problem that a lot of people have. They'll come to me and they'll be like, this trainer put me on a really low calorie diet, I can't stick to it. I'm not losing weight, it's not working for me. And I've got a lot of my clients now are clients who have come to me from other trainers who just simply haven't been looking after them, and they've been like, keep slashing their calories, bringing them lower and lower and lower because this person isn't losing weight. And really, if they can achieve adherence with that person, then they're going to see results on a higher calorie diet because they're sticking to it. But it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but if you imagine, let's do a quick sum. Let's say you've got a client on 2,000 calories a day. That's 14,000 calories a week, right? If that client can't stick to that diet because the diet you've given them isn't very good, or the education you've given them around efficient macros isn't very good, or the guidance you've given them around their diet and their motivation, etc., isn't good, then their ability to comply isn't going to be good. Therefore, they could do 2,000 calories for 3 days, but in the other 4 days they do 4,000 because they're not sticking to it. Therefore, 2,000 calories a day on that diet isn't working for them, right? Because their total weekly calories will be 6,000 plus 4 times 4, 16, 22,000. 8,000 more than what it would have been if it was 2,000 calories a day, which is more than enough to then bring them into a surplus potentially based on if their output isn't very high, then that is why their weight isn't dropping. So it isn't a case of, 2,000 calories isn't working for me. It's a case of your ability to follow that diet isn't working for whatever reason. It isn't always the client's fault. Sometimes it's the trainer's fault because they're not giving them the right support, education around the program that they're following. And there's so many factors, right? But then this is what people are coming to me with. The problem is they're saying, I've been brought really low on calories, it's not working. And it's normally down to compliance rather than down to the fact that many calories isn't working for them. But at the same time, I would much rather get someone to buy in with a slower rate of weight loss if they are more motivated to stick to it, especially if they've got a longer history of dieting. So I've got a lot of clients come to me who have been dieting now for a long time. Therefore, my first instinct is to get them higher again on calories to make it more sustainable and then make it more compliant, make them more compliant. And then in turn, they're losing weight, eating more calories. I'm like, this is ridiculous. This guy's like a scientist. He's not really losing weight on more calories than my last trainer. He's much better. When in reality, I'm just getting you to stick to things better than your last trainer did. So that's what it comes down to. And I hope that kind of makes sense. So we're always trying to strive for is adherence here. Assumptions of fast rates of weight loss. Another one is more weight gain after the diet, which I've just proven isn't true. That's normally down to behavior things such as binge eating and your inability to, you're just constantly overeating on food. That's what's going to then create that fast rate of weight loss post diet, not your slow metabolism. So it's normally down to that. And sometimes you, as a trade-off of doing a fast, aggressive diet, can be simply that you're just wanting to eat everything in sight because you've restricted so much from your diet. And I've had this before whereby I competed and I followed a really strict diet for 12 weeks whereby I only ate the same foods every single day for 12 weeks. So I had 84 days of eating the same foods at the same times. Like, I was the most regimented person ever. And it taught me so much that I can apply to life. But yeah, this is how extreme that diet got. Therefore, by the 7th week, me and my girlfriend at the time had written down on a piece of paper every place we wanted to go to eat and every food we wanted to eat at the end of that diet. How fast do you reckon I regained weight? And it was simply because it was an aggressive rate of weight loss, but it was also the way of doing it was way too aggressive. So there's so many ways to skin a cat, and this way was just wrong for me. But whereas I've had diets since where I've been aggressive, but it's still been really relaxed and more varied. I didn't have the need to then go and eat all these things afterwards, because there was just no behaviour, mindset, need to binge in that way. So this again is down to being subjective and making sure that the diet you're on is working for you, not just for the time that you're following the diet, but for post-diet as well, because you don't want to have these behavioural problems where you just go and binge and have a really bad relationship with food. And I did have that. So I think I competed like 78 kilos, and within 3 days I think I'd gained 20 pounds. 4 days or 4 or 5 days and I'd gained 20 pounds. So it just shows you how unsustainable that is. So that would then support the fact that you'd gain weight fast from a fast approach to weight loss, but that's not true, because it was just the wrong approach. It was the wrong fast approach, whereas you could follow a different fast approach on the same amount of calories, but you could be more varied with your approach, and you wouldn't then have the need to then go and binge, which is what I genuinely believe, and I've found in myself since, just from case studies, from what I've run with myself. And yeah, I know that's true. So again, it depends on that person, right? Because some people really need these regimented plans, and then they need a structured one afterwards. Whereas I was working with a coach, and at the end of that diet, he didn't give me another one. He was just like, "You didn't win your show. Well, you've let me down," and that'll be it. So I'd worked with this high-profile coach, paid a lot of money for a diet and a training plan to get me in shape for a show. I didn't win on the day. I didn't hear from the bloke again. He was expecting big things and thinking, yeah, he'll help me then grow my reputation even greater. I didn't do that, therefore he just fucked me off, and I was like left. All I had was a crazy hunger for every food in sight, and I didn't have a support from someone who should have really helped me diet out of that show, but he didn't. So, right. Next, no behaviour change from an assumption that comes from a fast rate of weight loss is no behaviour change. But if you're being coached in the right way, or if you're teaching yourself in the right way around a fast approach to weight loss, like I'm talking a big deficit, but you're understanding the right ways, the right foods to eat, the right ways to reverse out of it, the right ways to manage your progress and measure everything, then it won't be, you will still be able to develop behaviour change, right? And you can still develop good habits that then you can create to then help you when you then increase calories back into like a maintenance level or into a slower approach to weight loss, and then afterwards. There's so many ways to do this, right? Which is then what makes this interesting and cool, and then you can use it as like yourself as a case study to think, right, what's best for me to do? Should I go aggressive? Should I try losing weight really fast, or should I go with a slower approach? Like just basically work out your maintenance calorie intake and then think, right, 5 to 10% would be a slow way of weight loss, 35 to 50% would be a really fast, aggressive way. Maybe I'll go in the middle at 20, that you can just kind of choose your own percentage of deficit based on what you think will work for you, and then apply the right foods in at the right times with the right amount of protein. Then all of a sudden you can start to create a way of doing things that you can cycle in and out of, to then make sure you keep getting better, which is the aim that I want so many people to achieve, is that education around how to do things that then in a way will then help them to be more, which is obviously the idea. So what actually happens when people follow a fast rate? Sometimes it actually means better adherence in some. So like I said before, clients who've been like, not hungry Jack, it's not working. Put them on an aggressive plan, they're hungry, and the chances are they're going to be like, yeah. And also with a fast rate of weight loss, people are going to see results more instantly, right? It's faster. Therefore, that gets their buy-in, it gets them motivated. They're like, I've lost 6 pounds this week, I'm fucking flying. Next week, they lost 5 pounds, like, I've lost 7 pounds in 2 weeks, I'm flying. Therefore, they're really motivated. Whereas if they've lost 2 pounds in 2 weeks, they'll be like, yeah, I've lost weight, but I'm not that excited yet. And this is what happens. So you can get someone's buy-in and motivation and their adherence met quicker by sometimes being more aggressive in the get-go. So yeah, and also it can be slow sometimes if you put someone on a diet that's tracking calories and they're a bit slow to get started, or they're a bit slow to get things right. Whereas if they've got like a really structured meal plan, or they've got a structured or a low calorie amount that can be easier to stick to because they don't want to eat so much food because they're changing things up. Like sometimes you'll find that actually a faster rate of weight loss can be easier for someone initially and can make them adhere better. But again, it's so subjective and it depends on that client. And what you need to do as someone who's either following a diet or as someone who's distributing diets to people, as a coach or as a dietitian, you need to understand what will work best for that individual, and that this is why personal training is personal. It's personal training, it's subjective, and that's what you've got to try and strive to achieve by making each plan specific to the individual that you're trying to coach, or the diet you're following yourself. And then you've got to manage the process and manage the results you get to then establish if that's the right diet for you to follow or not follow. To then enable you to then go and build the next one, right? It's all lessons. No significant differences in weight regain in certain studies. So this shows fast weight loss versus slow weight loss, and then there's no actual significant difference to support if one or the other is actually going to encourage faster weight gain. So that's an interesting one, which then debunks a lot of myths that say, if you do it too fast, you're going to gain weight really fast. It depends on the individual again. It depends on the behaviour and depends on what that person is then going to go and do. So if they're following a diet that's super restrictive and then they go and binge, then yes, no fucking shit, they're going to regain weight. But even if they do it in a diet that's a slow deficit, like a low rate of maybe 5%, they still might have these behaviour tendencies to then go and binge because mentally they're trapped in this diet. Some people are like that. Whereas other people are like, 5% deficit, that's nothing. I feel great all the time. I can do this for about the next 5 years. I can do it forever. Do you know what I mean? It's just having different people and they've got different perceptions on the diet they're following, and the way they view the world is different, right? So, ensure protein is adequate, resistance training is done, and you won't lose muscle on a fast rate of weight loss, and that's so true. So just make sure that you're resistance training and you're being progressive with that. And they've even got studies now to show that you can actually build muscle in a calorie deficit. So a lot of people for a long time, including myself, would say, if you want to build muscle, you can't be in a deficit. You won't build muscle in a deficit. All you can do is lose fat, then bring calories into a surplus for you to build muscle. This has been proven now to not be true. So you can actually build muscle whilst losing fat, which is the best news ever. So you can be getting more muscle whilst losing fat. So you're going to see the best body composition changes you can possibly imagine, because you're doing what your body, how to look better naked is basically more muscle, less fat. And whether it be your goal to be really super lean and toned like a woman, and whether it's a guy, whether you want to be stacked and you want to be leaner and you want to have abs, like it's all relevant to the individual, but every single person will see a better body in the mirror if they are leaner, with better lean body mass and lower body fat levels. But it's subjective to most, right? But generally speaking, less body fat and more lean body mass will equal a better looking and feeling physique, unless they go too low, which is then another extreme, which we won't go into because this isn't about bodybuilding. But yeah, a lot of people won't tell you the secrets of bodybuilding, but when they get super lean, like, you don't want to get to that point. Like, you're hormonally going to see negative effects. But this is based on the general person, not based on somebody who's really fucking lean. So please be aware that if that is you, then speak to me about this as a different subject completely, because that's a different spectrum. Whereas this is based on general fat loss to the general pop who will benefit from this kind of content. Cool. So that's my first page covered. So I've mentioned already about the 27-year-old who fasted for a year and lost 82 kilos and then only regained 7. The actual benefits of fast weight loss, like I've said already, is the increased motivation and buy-in from the results that they're getting so quick off the bat. So adherence is met from a fast rate of weight loss as well as from slow rate. Depends on the individual, like I said already. I'll probably sound like a broken record, but as long as that sticks to you, so then when you go and have a conversation with someone about diet, you're like, there's no one way fits all, dickhead. It's based on what you want to do. Therefore, all you need to establish is the right amount of calories for you to eat. Whether you're tracking them or not, you need to try and be around that number, because that's going to then see you being in a deficit, which if your goal is fat loss, which is you have to be in. And then if you maintain a good level of protein and you're lifting weights, there's a good chance you won't lose muscle in the process. If you don't care about that and you just want to lose weight, then just make sure you're in a calorie deficit. That doesn't have to be tracked or not. Like, I'm going to do a podcast next week on how to do this without tracking at all. So I know I'm a big advocate of tracking calories, and I will recommend it till probably for a very long time, simply because it educates people a lot better about food to do initially, like I've said in podcasts previously. But you haven't got to do that. Like, I want everyone to be able to realise that, do you know what, I can do this. And not everyone's going to have the buy-in and the motivation to go and track calories. And you haven't got to. You just need to understand that there's things that need to be achieved for you to see weight loss. And I'm doing things from an evidence standpoint, and I know that for you to lose weight, all you need is a calorie deficit, mate. So there's a million ways to skin a cat. Do you have to do it while tracking calories? No. Is it going to help? Of course it is, because you're gonna know how many you're fucking having. Whereas if you're not tracking, you don't know what you don't measure. You can't manage. But if you just are generally looking to lose a bit of weight, you're a bit overweight. The chances are, if we swap this for this and that for that, and bring calories down in some way without you being consciously aware of it, all of a sudden weight's going to come off. You'll be like, fucking hell, I'm losing loads of weight. I'm like, yeah, no shit. Because you're not eating that shit anymore, or because you're having that instead of that, or because your health markers are improving, and you're exercising more, and your NEAT's going up, and your energy balance has shifted from a surplus that it was in chronically into a deficit in a sustainable way, or in a fast way, whatever way it's best for you as an individual. I hope this is coming across in the right way, and I would really, really appreciate it if you was to let me know if it is. So I know the podcast is achieving a bit more of a following now, there's a few more listeners, but I'm not 100% sure if it's adding value and if it's teaching you enough, or if it's teaching you anything. So what I would really appreciate is if you go into the review bit on iTunes or on SoundCloud or on whatever platform you're listening to this on, or it's on YouTube, and leave me a comment below, so just to let me know what the content is doing for you and whether it's helping, or whether I need to be clear in certain top subjects. Like, I want you to criticise me if you feel that you need to, because I want this to add value. Therefore, I'm not afraid for you to say that bit was shit, that bit was good. Like, I want to learn, and I want to be able to do things in a better way progressively every single time. So every podcast and every episode will then add more value. So we're on episode 22 or 23 now. Come episode 223, I'll be better if in that time frame you've given me feedback for me to then go and look at, read around, like learn around, and then deliver a better level of content, which is my aim. My aim is to distribute this content in a way that enables me to help more and more people over a period of time. And I don't care about how this episode performs. I care about how the next 300 perform, and I care about how many people that then goes and helps, and how my different podcasts each week can then motivate you to then go and do things to help you to be more. That's my goal, and it's like a phased, like a thing that happens every single week that gives you an opportunity for them to listen and be like, boom, motivated, I'm going to go and be more now. And that's what I want this to try and be about. I want to be the podcast that you come to, so then, or the YouTube channel that you go to watch, or the Instagram you go and check out to think, that guy's positive, he's doing things in a way that's going to help me in my life. And that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to strive for. Sounds deep and sounds big, but that's generally what I write down every single day, is just to try and give value and help people in their life. That's what I'm setting out to do. So hopefully this podcast is doing that. Big tangent, I apologise, but yeah. So, and also another benefit of fast rates of weight loss, we're back to that again, is it can potentially help you return to maintenance calories sooner. So let's say, for example, you've got a stone to lose, and you lose it in 3 weeks by being aggressive with your diet. And then you're happy with how you look. You're like, do you know what? I'm going to back off for a bit now, have a bit of a diet break, return calories to maintenance, and stick it there for a couple of weeks. You've only been dieting 3 weeks to get to that stone off, right? Whereas if you diet for 7 weeks to lose a stone, to lose 2 pounds a week, for example, or 14 weeks to lose a pound a week, you've dieted for longer. Therefore, how long have you spent in a diet? 14 weeks versus 3 or 4. Therefore, you're not returning to maintenance for a longer time. Therefore, you're psychologically in a diet longer. And that's a big benefit, right? To not feel like you're dieting all the time, having calories higher. Therefore, behaviour changes don't have to be so drastic. And therefore, you can keep food quite varied because calories are simply higher, right? Cool. So that's the benefits of fast weight loss. Now, I don't want you to come away from this video thinking, or this YouTube episode or this podcast thinking, I've now got to go and do things aggressively. That's not what I'm saying. If you've got this far, amazing. Thank you for listening so far. Now I'm going to go through the benefits of slow rates of weight loss. I'm going to try to do it really quickly because I appreciate this getting long now, but hopefully we're adding value. So the benefits of slow rates of weight loss: greater adherence. Again, it's person dependent. Some people work better off doing things in a sustainable way and doing things having calories higher, which then enables them to eat more varied foods, because let's face it, the lower your calories are, the more specific you have to be with the foods that you eat to keep calories so low. So another benefit is it's more manageable. Another benefit that it allows some more variety, like I said before. Another benefit is it prevents poor food relationships occurring, because potentially that can happen when you go so low. Another benefit would be it's better for very lean people, that I spoke about earlier. Another benefit would be it's better for those with a long diet history. Like I said, the clients I've taken on recently, they've been dieting for a long time, therefore increasing their calories and making it a slower approach can be better for them to achieve better adherence and to bring everything back up to where I want it to be, right? Another important thing to mention, so we've got adaptive thermogenesis, which is a big one. I need to say it slower if you don't understand what I'm saying. Refeeds and diet breaks and whether they're worth doing. So we're going to touch on those two for like 2 minutes each, and then I'm going to let you guys crack on with the rest of your week and hopefully having a bit more understanding around diet. So adaptive thermogenesis, which is basically when you're dieting quite aggressively, you will then feel less need to fidget. Like you see what I'm doing now, I'm moving around all the time. If you're watching on YouTube, I tend to fidget a lot, which is a sign that I'm not overly dieting. Whereas if I'm in a phase where I'm bringing calories really low, I'll tend to not move as much. I'll tend to not go as far down the beach when I'm having a walk, or I won't move as much when I'm in the gym, or when I'm doing anything. I'll just be generally more sedentary because my body is doing all it can to preserve energy. So when you go super low on calories and you find that, I'm not losing weight anymore, it's probably because your body's finding every way possible to preserve energy, so your NEAT levels are dropping. So that's why I have clients tracking their steps, making sure they're progressive, or making sure they're keeping them at a certain rate, because otherwise you can find yourself getting super lazy. For example, I remember having a client a couple of years ago who was competing in a show, and they still had a bit of work to do in the last week. They told me, I'm having a week off work, Jack. I was like, no, you're not. You're definitely not. Because at work, they were doing 15,000 steps. Whereas at home, they're going to lay on the sofa and rest and do none. Therefore, what can happen? They can potentially hold their whole fat loss for that whole entire week, which could then be a difference between them placing and not. So these are things that are important for you to understand, and understand that, yes, when you're dieting, if you're being aggressive, great, but if it then leads to your behaviours changing, so that you'll become more sedentary and more lazy, not move as much, then all of a sudden you won't burn as many calories, therefore your energy balance can shift, which then can mean that you won't drop as much weight, which is why I have which is why I have all my clients tracking their steps and measuring all the variables that we basically need to manage to make sure that results are occurring. So yeah, less fidgeting can happen from adaptive thermogenesis, less movement, and it can turn a deficit into maintenance, and even things like less sex. Like, it sounds silly, but when you over diet, your sex hormones and your sex drive does drop. Therefore, what do you do when you have sex? You burn calories, right? It's extra cardio. That will happen. That will tend to drop when you are in an aggressive deficit. True story, and I've experienced that as well a few times. Not a good one. Not a good experience. Okay, so 1 day refeeds, are they beneficial? A lot of people ask me about this, and they tend to do very little from a research standpoint to create any real physiological benefits. However, psychologically, I found it to be great. So what this basically is giving your client, or giving you a day in your week where you increase calories, increase often carbs, to then give you a chance to have a day where you have a bit more freedom with your diet. You can have something you wouldn't normally have. Like, I wouldn't call it a cheat meal, because that just encourages people to have a bad relationship with food. They're like, oh, I want a cheat day. Like, no, fuck off, I'm not going to recommend that. But what I would say is a refeed can potentially give someone like a psychological benefit, where you'll be like, okay, have today where you would either, again, it depends on that client's savvy and where they're at psychologically in their relationship with food, but I'll terminise what I say and what I recommend to them. So I could be like, oh, increase carbs, or have this meal, or do that, or go out with your husband, or do this or that. And again, the advice I give will depend on that client. So I'm really sorry that it's not clear cut. But a refeed for some people would be very strict, and it'll be right, bring carbs up to 400 grams rather than 200 grams, or it'll be change your macros to this, or it'll be have the evening off, or it could be, again, it's subjective to that client and what works for them. So for example, one client, I could say to them, well, have the evening off, have a cheat meal. They'll then go and eat 6,000 calories. Whereas I could say to a different client, have the evening off, go for a meal with your other half, or do something, have some ice cream or whatever. They'll be like, okay, cool. They'll have a tub of ice cream, and then they'll go to bed. So they're not going to do any damage, are they? Whereas client A, who went and shoved in 6,000 because they've been given the permission for me to have a night off, then go and binge like a idiot. Do you know what I mean? This is where, again, it's subjective, and how I've got to get into that client's psychological pathways to understand which is the best way to motivate them, and the best diet to give them, and the best training program, and the best process for them to follow, and the best journey for them, to ensure I get them from where they are to where they want to be in the best journey possible, and then create habits and educate them to then be able to follow this way past when they're working with me and forever in their whole life, right? So yeah, that's my thoughts on refeeds. So yeah, subjective, but good, but more psychological rather than physiological. Whereas a diet break, so it's a longer diet break rather than just being 1 day, that can be, again, massively psychological benefits from that. the metabolic benefits are not well studied, but they can encourage like increases in NEAT, which then can bring things back up. Because if you're eating more food for like a week or 2 weeks, for example, there's a good chance that you're then going to increase your output because you're feeling better and you've got more energy from eating more food. Therefore, your steps will increase and your energy in the gym will improve. Therefore, your energy output will increase from your gym sessions, and all of a sudden you can get good benefits from that. Like there's shown to be increases in leptin, which is like a hunger hormone, which then can add benefits to your levels of adherence and your ability to a number of things, right? So yes, maybe a week off every now and then will be of benefit. Again, it depends hugely on yourself and where you're at with regards to psychological dieting and physiologically from dieting. So yeah, a diet break can bring benefits, but it's not something I overuse with people. It depends on where they're at. And yeah, so many reasons. Like for example, I would not give a client a diet break after 8 weeks because that's the time frame we said that we would do it. Even that week they're about to go on a holiday. Well, they're like 2 weeks from a holiday and they want to really push harder with fat loss. I'm like, oh, let's have a diet break. They were like, Jack, no, I want to get leaner. I want to be more aggressive. So that'd be a time I'd be like, right, be more aggressive. So the diet world and what you're going to follow in your journey is going to be forever changing, and that's what you need to understand. And then you want to reverse engineer your goals and what you follow based on these little events and what's happening in your life. So yeah, rant over, 41 minutes. Hopefully it added some value. Please do leave me a comment and leave me a ratings on iTunes or SoundCloud or whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure you hit subscribe, because if you do, then you're going to be notified when I do post a video or post a podcast episode. So make sure you do that. There's also a bell on the YouTube channel that if you click on that, it will then, again, it will remind you when I do post videos. So yeah, thanks a lot for your feedback. I will say that in advance, and I'll make sure I get back to each and every single one of you. And hopefully I can add some value this week with more content via all of my channels that I'm currently distributing on. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys and girls. Have an awesome, productive week, and I'll catch up with you all really soon.